Hi, and welcome to Catholic Mom and Daughter. I'm Jennifer, and this is Kate. And before you ask, no, the Pope is not dead.
So why, you may be wondering, are we talking about this?
Well, that's a good question, Kate. And as it turns out, I have been reading a book called The Old Gospel Modernly Applied, and in it, the author covers this topic.
Modern? This book was written in 1937.
Well, modern is a loose term here, Kate. There hasn't been a papal death since 2005. So I think a lot of us know how a new pope is elected, which is a different topic, but not many of us know or maybe remember, since it's been so long, what exactly happens just right after the pope dies.
So today we're going to walk you through the steps to that immediate process right after he dies and look at where the traditions came from and also some other interesting facts about papal funerals.
Okay, so the first thing that happens when a pope dies is that his chamberlain or camerlengo is called to the scene to verify that the pope is really dead. And he does this by standing over the pope's body and calling out his baptismal name 3 times.
And if there's no answer, he will then say in Latin, the Pope is truly dead. And then traditionally, he used to hit the Pope on the forehead 3 times with a small silver hammer or mallet. But I say used to because this has evidently fallen out of favor and hasn't been done since the death of Pope John the 23rd in 1963.
What happens to his body once he's declared officially dead? Not much. No one really touches the Pope's body after he dies, and no autopsies are ever performed on a Pope, which I think is interesting. But that does lead to some of those wild conspiracy theories that circulate about what killed the Pope. We don't know. This happened when John Paul I died unexpectedly in 1978. He most likely died of a heart attack, but no autopsy, so we don't know, and all kinds of wild rumors went around.
So after he's pronounced dead, a death certificate is written and the papal apartments are sealed. Now this was first done because they didn't want people coming in and looting them, but that's not really so much of a worry anymore. But the camerlengo still doesn't want people getting into his apartments and stealing his will or personal papers.
The next thing that happens is the cutting of the fisherman's ring. Each pope has a gold signet ring that he wears, and it has a picture of Peter fishing from a boat on it. That's why it's called the fisherman's ring. It is a symbol of the pope's authority, and it has his name on it, and he uses it as a seal.
So the ring is removed and then it is destroyed in a ceremony at a meeting of the College of Cardinals, and this officially ends his pontificate. Now, the ceremony is mostly symbolic nowadays, but in the past it was done so that nobody could steal the ring and then impersonate the Pope or forge documents.
And in case you're wondering, the new pope coming in will get his own ring, and it's a tradition that extends back 800 years.
So that does make me wonder, what did Pope Benedict do with his ring when he retired?
Well, according to everything I read, he did have to surrender his ring in 2013 when he resigned from the papacy. I'm not entirely sure that it was destroyed, but he doesn't have it himself anymore.
So as a side note, no pictures or any form of imagery of the Pope on his deathbed are allowed, and no one can record the Pope's last words. And this came about because in 1958, when Pope Pius XII died, his private doctor took a photo of him after he had died, but he was still wearing his oxygen mask.
So John the 23rd coming in was deeply distressed that these highly personal pictures of Pius XII were circulated, so he instated the no photos rule, which was upheld by Pope Paul VI, and then John Paul II expanded on that as our technology has increased. So the only time that you can take a picture of a dead pope is when he's laid out for his funeral in his pontifical garments.
But still, then the camerlengo has to approve any photos taken before they are released. So the first person to be notified after the Pope has died is the Vicar of Rome, who is appointed by the Pope to help share his workload. And the current vicar is Cardinal Angelo de Donatis, who was appointed in 2017.
Then the College of Cardinals is notified, and after that, heads of nations are told and ambassadors, and then the rest of us. But in reality, we live in such a techno world that the word gets out pretty fast, and pretty soon everyone knows that the Pope has died.
According to tradition, the Pope's funeral must take place 4 to 6 days after he dies, though the mourning period is 9 days, in which 9 consecutive masses are said for his soul. And you might be wondering, who plans the Pope's funeral? Well, often it is the Pope himself before he dies. He will often lay out the plans and leave the instructions with the Camerlengo. For example, John Paul II laid out his funeral plans in 1996, almost a decade before he died.
So he was prepared. When the Pope's body is ready for the funeral, it is taken out of the Apostolic Palace through the bronze door, which is also called the Door of Death. And then that door is shut and sealed, and no one will go through it until the new Pope comes through it himself. So then the Pope's body is taken through St. Peter's Square into the Basilica.
And the flags in the Vatican are also lowered down to half-mast, and the cardinals will wear violet instead of their traditional red in mourning. And then when the Pope is buried, he's usually placed under the altar in St. Peter's Basilica, right by his predecessors, including St. Peter himself.
Not a bad resting place. Okay, so now sadly there is no Pope in the Vatican. The Camerlengo does have authority in Vatican City, but he cannot make decisions about faith or morals. The cardinals will then come from all over the world to elect the new Pope, but since nobody knows who the new Pope will be, it's interesting that the Swiss Guard will treat each individual cardinal as if he were the Pope himself. They'll use that same elaborate respect that's usually reserved only for the Pope.
So that is what happens immediately after the Pope dies, and then the election process for a new Pope starts 15 days later. So now we have some interesting and, I don't know if I should say fun, facts about papal funerals.
I think we'll call them intriguing facts. And the first one is that when the Pope dies, he is buried with 3 bags of coins. A bag of gold coins, a bag of copper coins, and a bag of silver coins. And the number of coins in each bag represents the number of years that the Pope served. Now, that is the only money that the Pope ever receives for all his years of service to the Church. That's right, the Pope's annual salary is $0 per year.
The next fact is that the Pope is buried in 3 caskets. The first one is made of cypress, and it contains the Pope's body, the bags of coins, and a copy of the funeral eulogy.
Then that casket is placed in a second casket made of lead, and on the lead casket you have the Pope's name engraved and the dates of his service engraved, and then those 2 together are put into a third casket made of elm, and then that is nailed shut.
And those 3 caskets are meant to protect the Pope's body, which leads us into the next fact, and that is that the Pope is never cremated. As Catholics, we believe in the resurrection of the body, and while cremation is allowed in the Church, the Pope's bodies always remain intact.
Do snafus ever happen when a Pope dies? And the answer is yes. For example, before Pope John Paul II actually died, he was reported dead by the media on 3 separate occasions. There were newscasts, and he had obituaries published, and he wasn't even dead yet.
But when he did finally die, the people of Poland actually requested that his heart be sent back to Poland to be buried, but that request got denied, and he rests peacefully in one piece in St. Peter's Basilica.
Okay then, are all the popes buried in the Vatican?
No. Around 150 popes, depending on who you read, are buried outside of the Vatican. And as a creepy aside, there is already a white sarcophagus in place in the Basilica for Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI, who at 94 is the oldest man alive to have ever served as Pope.
And in case you're wondering what Pope Francis has planned for his funeral, he has already requested to be buried close to St. Peter in the same spot where John the 23rd and John Paul II were originally buried. But that spot is now free because when they were declared saints, John the 23rd and John Paul II were moved back upstairs into the main body of the basilica.
All right, so we could go on for a long time about all the interesting facts and details of papal funerals and burials. We went down a rabbit hole while researching this, but we're gonna stop here.
Yeah, it's very fascinating, and I stayed up way too late reading about dead popes. So anyway, let us know in the comments who is your favorite pope. As always, we thank you for watching, and we hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.